Korea's government and the ruling party agreed to fast-track the establishment of an indigenous nuclear and missile defense system to protect the country against North Korea's threats. And Seoul expresses deep regret over visits by Japanese lawmakers to a controversial war shrine in Tokyo that honors more than a dozen Class A war criminals. Prosecutors here in Korea wrap up their 4-month-long probe into Lotte Group. They drop plans to issue an arrest warrant for the retail giant's chairman, who's mired in embezzlement allegations. These and more coming right up. Hello, it's Wednesday, October 19th here in Seoul. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. The South Korean government and the ruling party have agreed to expedite the deployment of a 3-pillar advanced weapons system by 2 to 3 years. The two sides believe the step is necessary to bolster the nation's defense readiness in the face of growing threats from North Korea. Park Ji-won starts us off.
The South Korean government and the ruling Saenuri party have agreed to expedite the establishment of the nation's 3-pronged defense system against North Korea's nuclear threats by the early 2020s, an advance from the current time frame of the mid-2020s. The 3 elements of the defense system are the country's indigenous air and missile defense system, or KAMD, and the kill chain preemptive strike system, and the Korea Massive Punishment and Retaliation Action Plan that would target the North Korean leadership, including its military headquarters, in the event of a nuclear attack. The agreement was made at a meeting at the National Assembly on Tuesday morning, which came together after North Korea's failed ballistic missile launch last weekend. The talks were attended by Defense Minister Han Min-gu and other defense officials on the government side, and floor leader Chung Jin-seok and chief policymaker Kim Kwang-lim for the ruling party. The Saenuri party also called on the government to acquire nuclear-powered submarines.
The government should proactively examine acquiring nuclear-powered submarines to protect the South from the North's SLBM threats. The submarines will also be a great asset in the long term to South Korea, a country with 3 sides facing the sea.
The Defense Ministry officials said they would cautiously examine the request. The government and the ruling party also agreed to secure extra funds next year to counter the threats posed by North Korea's newly developed multiple launch rocket systems and its ever-increasing cyber warfare capabilities. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And as you've just seen, South Korea is reviewing the idea of acquiring a nuclear-powered submarine. But according to our Connie Kim, there are a few issues Seoul must tackle before it can greenlight the plan.
The South Korean government has agreed to review the possibility of acquiring its own nuclear-powered submarine in response to North Korea's successful launch this summer of a ballistic missile from a submarine. The agreement was made Tuesday in a meeting between the government and ruling Saenuri party. The best way to respond to the North threat would be to have a nuclear-powered submarine that could monitor North Korea's submarine base and launch a preemptive strike if necessary. Military authorities say the 2 main challenges would be acquiring the technology and receiving consent from neighboring countries. A nuclear-powered submarine requires uranium with enrichment levels ranging from between 20 and 90%. Seoul does not have a uranium enrichment facility, but it could acquire uranium enriched to 20% from Washington under the South Korea-U.S. Atomic Energy Agreement sealed last year. While the acquisition of uranium enriched to 90% would have to be further negotiated with Washington, military experts say South Korea would first have to decide on the level of enriched uranium it would use for its submarine.
With highly enriched uranium, there could be limitations imposed by the international community, as it could be used for nuclear weapons development. But the complication with low-enriched uranium is the fuel rods must be changed every 10 years.
However, the bigger concern is that opposition from China, Russia, and even Japan could spark an arms race in the region. Seoul is likely to consult with Washington on the matter when the defense chiefs from Seoul and Washington meet later this week. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Seoul has expressed concern about visits to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine by scores of Japanese lawmakers and its Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sending ritual offerings to it, which enshrines those who oversaw Japan's brutal past wrongdoings. Kim Hae-sung has the details.
Over 80 Japanese lawmakers visited the controversial Yasukuni Shrine Tuesday to mark its annual autumn festival. The gesture prompted a quick response from Korea's foreign ministry.
We urge Japanese politicians to gain trust from neighboring countries and the international community by showing an act of humble introspection and sincere self-reflection on the basis of a correct perception of history.
The shrine not only honors the war dead, but also 14 Class A war criminals. Visits by senior Japanese politicians have for decades drawn angry reactions from Seoul and Beijing, which regard the shrine as a symbol of Japan's wartime militarism.
Visiting Yasukuni Shrine gives Abe and other nationalists a kind of legitimacy as they push for a revisionist narrative to Japan's history and collective self-defense. Of course, it harms Japan's relationship with Korea.
The Japanese political leader's visit came a day after Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent a ritual offering to the shrine. Abe has only visited the shrine once since taking office to avoid inciting tensions with Korea and China. But more Japanese lawmakers are reportedly slated to visit during the shrine's annual autumn festival, which runs through Thursday. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Local prosecutors have technically drawn a line under their 4-month-long investigation into retail giant Lotte Group. They've decided to press ahead with indictments after a court rejected their request to arrest the group's chairman on embezzlement charges late last month. The results of the probe will be announced today. Hwang Ho-jun reports.
The 4-month-long probe into Korea's fifth-largest conglomerate is moving to court. The state prosecutor's office said Tuesday that it will indict but not detain the founding family of the Lotte Group on Wednesday. This includes Shin Dong-bin, the current president of Korea's fifth-largest conglomerate and the focal point of the corruption investigation, his father and the patriarch of the group, Shin Gyeok-ho, as well as his estranged brother, Shin Dong-ju, who's the former vice chairman of Lotte Holdings in Japan. They will be charged with tax evasion, embezzlement, and breach of trust. The Lotte's founder's common-law wife, Seo Mi-kyung, and his youngest daughter, Shin Young-ja, have already been indicted on charges of tax evasion, making 5 family members altogether to be tried in court. Shin Gyeok-ho allegedly evaded hundreds of millions of dollars worth of gift taxes by handing over 6.2% of Lotte Holdings shares under a borrowed name to a firm owned by Seo and his daughter. The founder is also accused of steering them about $69 million worth of deals to operate snack bars at movie theaters run by Lotte. Shin Dong-bin allegedly embezzled more than $44 million and caused the group losses of $155 million plus. Moreover, he's also suspected of orchestrating a series of shady deals between the group's affiliates. For the past 4 months, about 500 of Lotte's executives and staffs have been summoned by prosecutors, either as a suspect or a witness. The investigation had faced a crisis when Lee In-won, the group's vice chairman, was found dead in an apparent suicide in late August, right before being called. The results of the Lotte probe will be made public by the prosecution on Wednesday. The trial for the indicted family members is expected to last as long as a year. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
New technologies are emerging rapidly and changing society just as quickly. We often equate this as being good, but the head of the World Economic Forum, who is currently in Korea, warns they could overwhelm us if the world does not collaborate to understand and manage them. For more on the challenges posed by the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution, Kwon Jang-ho reports.
Self-driving cars, artificial intelligence and robots. The fourth industrial revolution has arrived. For Korea, that became startlingly real when Grandmaster Lee Se-dol was beaten by the AlphaGo computer in Paduk, a game that was previously said to be so complex it would be years before a computer could win. The person who's been at the forefront of highlighting this shift in the world is Professor Klaus Schwab, the founder and chairman of the World Economic Forum. For the past year, Schwab has been championing the fourth industrial revolution, including in a new book bearing its name, and he was recently in Seoul for the launch of the Korean edition.
We feel that the fourth industrial revolution will be one, if not the major force, which will really shape the future with a tremendous impact on society.
For those who need a refresher, mechanization, mass production, and computers represented the first three industrial revolutions, while intelligent machines, digital interconnectivity, and adaptive manufacturing represents the fourth. To discuss its impact and Korea's place in it, Professor Schwab visited a number of sites to meet with young innovators and future industry leaders.
There are many young entrepreneurs developing really innovative and disruptive products in Korea, and he wanted to hear their thoughts and ideas and see how Korea is preparing for the fourth industrial revolution.
But for as much as Korea has developed over the last 6 decades, going from a war-torn country to a leading world economy, it currently faces just as many challenges going into the new industrial revolution, such as a slowing economy, rising unemployment, and an aging population. The Korean government is looking to overcome these difficulties with heavy investment. Its $13 billion budget for 2017 targets industries recognized as future growth engines, including AI, biomedicine, and the energy sector. While Professor Schwab praised Korea's efforts in adapting to the fourth industrial revolution, he also stressed that governments, including Seoul, will need to be agile enough to navigate the new and changing environment. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
It's the moment of truth for many Korean fashion designers as the Spring-Summer 2017 Seoul Fashion Week is now underway. The event, which runs through Saturday, will provide a glimpse at what trends will be front and center next year. Kim Min-ji reports.
It's just 10 minutes before the show when the action is all backstage. Underneath the glitz and glamour of every fashion week, there's tension in the air and everyone rushes from left to right, but nobody gets busier than the designers themselves, checking every last detail from hemlines and accessories to hair and makeup. It doesn't have the intensity of the runway, but for the designer, this is where the real work happens. These are moments of both tension and exhilaration, because in a matter of minutes, their sweat and tears will be put to the test.
After about 15 years working for a brand, it's been 6 years since I launched my own. I started at the bottom and worked my way up, learning from many designers and fighting for what I enjoy. This kind of experience keeps me going.
Park Yoon-hee is just one of over 60 designers participating in the Hera Seoul Fashion Week, which opened Tuesday to unveil an array of cutting-edge designs and concepts for next year's spring-summer season.
And this time round, fashion leaders say the bohemian look is the trend to look out for. The bold colors and the exotic prints are ideal to express your individual sense of style.
The event is now in its 16th year, and although it has a relatively short history, it's gradually working its way up in the ranks of major fashion weeks in cities around the world.
Until last season, we would have had to contact foreign VIPs and buyers several times to get them to come. This time, we received a lot of calls from buyers and agencies first, saying they would like to participate.
Going forward, Seoul Fashion Week needs to draw up a new strategy. The event needs to explore means to foster creativity and originality in order to become more globally competitive.
Korea still lacks global brands. Local designers need to establish their own uniqueness, something that makes them stand out, so that they achieve competitiveness.
In this way, experts say global buyers will see Korean designers and products that stand out by their own, thus making Seoul Fashion Week a must-see event every year. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama says claims of collusion between the FBI and State Department officials over the classification of an email on Hillary Clinton's private server were just not true. During a news conference at the White House, Obama said some of the more sensational implications or appearances are not based on actual events. In interview notes released this week by the FBI, an unidentified bureau official said he heard secondhand that the State Department had offered a quote-unquote quid pro quo in exchange for declassifying an email. Regarding Donald Trump's suggestions the presidential election is rigged, Obama said the Republican candidate should stop whining and try to win voters instead. He said Trump's actions do not show the kind of leadership and toughness Americans want in their president. A top EU official has urged European countries to prepare for returning jihadists if the so-called Islamic State is driven out of Mosul, its stronghold in Iraq. Speaking to a German newspaper on Tuesday, Julian Kang, the EU Commissioner for the Security Union, said Europe must boost its border defense and increase its resilience to terrorism. He stressed the threat posed by even a small number of ISIS members returning to Europe would be very serious. Raffaello Pantucci, the director of international security studies at the Royal United Service Institute, warned that ISIS has shown a capacity to send fighters back hidden among refugees entering Europe. He warned that these returnees could launch attacks. At least 2,500 ISIS fighters are believed to be holed up in Mosul. And that wraps it up for now. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Hung Jie, and I'll be back in less than 2 hours for more news updates. So do stay tuned, and goodbye for now.